Hey there and welcome. This is Laura Lynn with Keep Inking Up. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up in San Antonio, Texas. And today I wanted to share a couple of tips on how to do some selective inking. I thought about this because I made this Christmas card earlier this week and I had this Peace on Earth sentiment for it, but this is not the total sentiment. Actually, the sentiment, it comes from a set called Hope and Peace, and it's Peace on Earth, Goodwill to All. But as you can tell, this stamp image was too large for my card, and so I wanted just the Peace on Earth because it fit better. Plus, it just kind of went together with the peaceful trees. I didn't think that I needed the entire sentiment. So what I wanted to share with you were 3 different ways that you can selectively ink any image. Now, I am going to be showing these methods using sentiments, but you can do this with any images. It doesn't have to be a sentiment only, but I did want to show it with this one because of this card. So I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to pull out my Stamparatus. Now you do not need to use a Stamparatus for this. I just thought it would be easier to show. So I have a piece of our basic white cardstock in here. I'm going to set this stamp right there. And I'll go ahead and begin. The first method is to mask off the section of your image that you don't want to have inked with some Post-it notes. So I'm going to tear some Post-it notes and I'm going to mask off all of the sections of the stamp that I do not want to have inked. Let's see, I don't want to have any of it showing here. So hopefully you can see that, how I've got the Post-it masking off the lower part of the sentiment. And now I'm going to pull in my Night of Navy ink pad. And I'm going to ink up the stamp just like I would normally. Now, what's very important is to remove all of these Post-its because this ink will go everywhere if you don't. Ask me how I know about that. So now I'm going to just swing this over and stamp down my sentiment. And that is lovely. So I have got Peace on Earth, even though the whole stamp says Peace on Earth, Goodwill to All. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the second method. We're going to rotate this paper. I'm going to clean off my stamp. So we'll start with a fresh new stamp. Okay, so now I'm going to use the Night of Navy Stampin' Write marker. I'm going to go ahead and close up this ink pad before I accidentally get my fingers in it. So now I'm going to take the brush tip end and I'm going to try to bring this up to you so you can see it better. I'm going to angle the side of the brush and paint the ink on the part of the sentiment that I want to show, that I want to have inked. So this is selectively coloring the part of the image that I want to have inked. And again, I'm using this side of the marker. And you don't have to use, well, I highly recommend you do use the Stamparatus for this technique, and you'll see why in just a few seconds. Okay, so I've got some ink on there. I'll put it back into the Stamparatus, and then I will stamp it down. Now, as you can tell, this is quite a bit lighter than this because this is the full strength ink from the ink pad. Now, you may like that. You may prefer to have that lighter color. That's fine. But if you want it darker, the beauty of the Stamparatus is we can just keep adding more layers of ink. So again, I'm going to color with the side of the marker. Get another layer of ink on the part of the sentiment that I want. And like I said, this is why the Stamparatus is good for this particular technique. Okay, put this back in and stamp it down. And now it's darker. Now it's still not quite as dark as this version, but it is substantially darker than it was previously, so that is wonderful. So that's the second method. Let me go ahead and clean this off, and we'll get to the third way. but I'm going to use a different stamp. Get this cleaned off, and it looks good. Okay, so I'm going to take this stamp off. And this time I'm going to use the Happy Birthday sentiment from the Artistically Inked stamp set. If you follow me, you know that I use this particular sentiment a lot because it is a great font that goes with so many stamped images. Now what you'll see right away is that I've done some stamp surgery and I've cut it in two pieces. So I've got Happy and Birthday. And the reason I did that is I wanted to be able to stack them when stamping. But in this case, I'm just going to show you the selectively inking. So I'm going to place these on my card with it aligned the way it's originally intended. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to make sure that that is exactly back the way it was supposed to be. So I'm lining up my cut line so it is exactly the way it was originally intended. Now, because what we learned from this technique, I like the more intense ink versus the marker. So this time I'm going to use the Tahitian Tide ink pad, like we did with the first version, and I'm going to ink up the Happy. Now, because the stamp is connected, I got a little bit on the Birthday, so I'm just going to simply pick up the Birthday, set that aside for the moment, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp the Happy down. I'm going to bring back the Birthday. I'm going to clean off the stamp, both stamps, since I got ink on both sides. Then I'm going to go ahead, the Happy is hopefully still in the same spot. I'm going to line up the Birthday so it is exactly in line the way it was supposed to be. Now I'm going to ink up the Birthday with Orchid Oasis. I got a little bit on the Happy, but that's okay. I'm going to take the Happy off. Then I'm going to swing this over. And so now I've got Happy Birthday perfectly aligned exactly the way it was originally intended, even though I cut the stamp. So the 3 ways to selectively ink are to mask off with Post-it notes or washi tape, some type of masking paper, however you want to mask off one area of your image and then ink with your ink pads. Or you can use your Stampin' Write markers and only add ink to the area that you want, but it is handy to have the Stamparatus for that technique. Or you can do stamp surgery on your stamps and selectively ink in that method. So I hope that one of these ways was new to you, so you learned something. I really appreciate you joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Thanks. Bye-bye.